Hi there, my name is Peter Janis, and today I'm going to tell you guys about reamping and the Radial X-Amp. The Radial X-Amp is our #1 selling reamping box. It's an active reamper, and what that means is that it employs an amplifier or a buffering stage to amplify the signal. Essentially, a reamping box is designed to take a pre-recorded track, plug it in here, send the output to 1 or 2 amplifiers, you adjust the level, and away you go. Now let me explain a little bit more detail. First thing you need to know, reamping has been around for a long time. Back in the 70s, bands like Steely Dan, actually we started way before that, even the Beatles and Motown, these guys have been reamping for a long time. But it was Steely Dan that really got that process so that people understood how it really worked. And it wasn't until the 1990s that a guy called John Cunaberti actually created the very first commercial product called the reamp. And of course we now own that name and patent and all that stuff. But essentially what the reamp did was it allowed you to take a pre-recorded track, run it into an amplifier, like for example a guitar track, and exchange the sound, or change the sound so that it improves. Now why do you want to do that? Well, think about it. You record the guitar, you got it on track, it doesn't sound good as you move forward with your recording, you can always go in and fix it, okay? So that's the whole idea. Let me explain how that works. So, you start off with, you got a guitar. That plugs into a DI box like the Radial J48. J48 has a throughput that goes to the amplifier. The guitar player goes ahead, plays his stuff, does his tunes, and while you're doing that, you record that wet or the distorted track on one track. At the same time, you take the DI output from the J48. Let me see if I have one over here as I walk back into the picture. You see, that's like magic, isn't it? So here's the J48. So I'm plugging the guitar into this. This one goes to my amplifier. Then from this output, I go to my recording system. Okay, so that connects to a preamplifier or your mixing input. That's what the J48 does. The cool thing about it is that I've captured the wet, distorted sound from that guitar player while I've also captured a clean track on an extra track. And herein lies the really cool thing. 20 years ago, multi-track recorders were so expensive, only the rock stars could record with them. Today, everyone has a computer, and computers have unlimited tracks. That means that you can afford to do reamping, where 20 years ago you couldn't do it. Today, you just boom, you got tons of tracks. So you can take that spare track, run it over here, then send the guitar player home. Tell him to go visit his girlfriend, go to the beach, do whatever. You don't want them around the studio, they drink all the beer. Get them out of there. What you want is you want to start to record and do the work. You're the engineer. Now what do you want to do? You take that recording, so here I've got that clean track on track #1 over here. I then take that, run it into the X-Amp, right? So that's going into the X-Amp. From the X-Amp, I can go to 1 amp. In fact, I got 2 outputs, so I can go to 2 amplifiers at the same time. Now, I can move the mics around the room, find the sweet spot, change the tone, add pedals, do all this really cool stuff to really get that sound the way that I want. The guitar player doesn't have to be there. And the other cool thing about it is that, you know, since you've got Pro Tools or some kind of a digital recording system, fixing a flub note, so in other words, let's say he messes up one note. You can go in and edit that note really easily when it's clean. Much harder to edit when it's distorted. So he doesn't have to go through all this repetition, doesn't have to play 100 times to get it right, doesn't have to worry about the sound. None of that stuff matters anymore. Just capture the performance, capture that player when he's fresh, take that sound, replace it. And by the way, this doesn't just work on guitars, it works on bass, it works on keyboards, it works on drums. You want to replace a snare drum, all this kind of stuff. You can run a snare drum through a guitar amplifier, on a wah pedal, all this fun stuff that all these pros are doing, you can now do anywhere at any size studio. So it's really cool. Now, if we look inside this little box called the reamper, what you're going to find is that there's a bunch of electronics. This is, of course, very high quality, called Class A circuitry and everything else, but there's also a transformer here. And what this transformer does, this transformer isolates the output on amp #2. What does that mean for you? Very, very important. What happens is that if you've got 2 amplifiers connected together, okay, and these are now, of course, joined here, well, if you've ever used a low-cost ABY box, you know that when you run 2 amplifiers of different brands and whatnot together, chances are you're going to get a lot of buzz and hum, you're going to get a lot of problems. So that transformer isolates this output, the transformer, eliminating the buzz and hum caused by ground loops. So that little box, that little X-Amp, is really magical. It's super easy to use. We sell it as a kit. We got a reamping kit that has a J48 and an X-Amp, where you can buy them separately. They're awesome. They're used all over the world. They're by far the #1 selling reamp device in the world. We have other ones, less expensive, some passive ones. Check them out on our website. Radial Engineering, Peter Janis. Have a great day.